Hey, it's Amy Lewis from the KFBK Morning News with Brandon Haefele from Catalyst Mortgage. Zero, zilch, nada, goose egg. We're not going to charge you anything. When you hear that, when it comes to a mortgage and getting your mortgage through, and somebody tells you that, turn around and go in the opposite direction because they're not really being truthful. It's called deceptive marketing, and it really is done in every aspect of business and in personal life too. So define what goes on in mortgages when it's deceptive practices.
Well, there's several
Marketing,
ways.
deceptive marketing.
Yeah, there's several ways people are advertised that's deceptive, but on top of that, that are even marketed pretending you're a different company. There's all sorts of different ways that companies are deceptive to the consumer. When we talk about just stuff that you get up front, you get something in the mail and it will have Amy Lewis, 1234 Main Street, and then right below it'll have lender, Catalyst Mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, you might think as a consumer, as most would, oh, this is something from Catalyst Mortgage, my current lender. But then when you actually call them or you're following up on an offer, it's not that company. It's a totally different company that's trying to cross-sell you mortgage protection insurance, trying to sell you a refinance, and so on.
And they sell your my information, they sell it to other people.
Well, when we go into that one, we go into when you go online and you go and let's say lowest mortgage rates, or you go to you search up search a company. Some companies will actually take your information once you put stuff in, and they will sell it to several companies. They'll sell it to for auto, for home, for anything you can think of, for dating websites. Literally, you can get email.
I promise, honey, I won't do that.
You can get emails and solicitations from so many people just from giving your information for a mortgage. And what's really frustrating, and consumers need to really make sure they're reading the fine print, whether they get a letter in the mail, whether they look online, is some companies will even pretend to be a different company. Like the letter, they do it online as well. And then what ends up happening is you're putting your information in there and it's being sold to 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 different lenders. What ends up happening, if you put your social in, which a lot of companies will put that information, you'll have multiple hits on your credit report. You're going to have phone calls day and night. And so really as a consumer, read the fine print, not just online, when you scroll all the way to the bottom, but also on the letters that you get in the mail.
Yeah.
And protect yourself, because we as a company have been victim to other people calling a different firm from a bogus thing in the mail or bogus online,
and
they think they're calling us.
How do you
or they
deal
think,
with that?
Well, really, you get consumers that will call and say, hey, we tried to, we filled an online thing for you, or we called and, we called on a mail solicitation, and
how come you don't have my information?
How come you didn't, provide, the what you said in writing and everything else? And we looked through our database, we didn't have any information. Finally, come to find out, there's other companies that will solicit. So it's important as a consumer, no matter who you work with, no matter why you're calling, do the research on that company. And I think it's always important, you utilize, you can do complaints against company name, and you'll see through things like ripoffreport.com, which is one of the best, which companies are deceptive to consumers. Moreover, even when you get advertisements in the mail, people will say, 2.5, 10-year fixed, but with a 3.25 APR, and we've talked about this in the past. Well, that's going to be like with $15,000, let's say, in closing costs, some astronomical amount. So are they being deceptive on the interest rate as well, or whatever they're advertising to you to just get you to call? And a lot of companies will try, to do that. And it's one of those things, again, you just have to be a smart consumer.
Yeah, the other thing you said, though, struck me, though, when you said scroll down and read the fine print, because if you as a consumer, and honestly, I know that you and I would do that. We would scroll down to the bottom, or we'd take that piece of paper we got in the mail, go all the way to the bottom, read it frontwards and backwards. At the bottom, it's not like they're going to say, oh, by the way, we're not really Catalyst Mortgage. It's like they'll say something else about their own company name in smaller print, so it's not even obvious.
And if they're trying to be a little ethical, they might put not affiliated with,
ethical.
But it's just a very small amount. And so you really have to do your research. But one thing I have to say, at the same token, and this is where, as a consumer, it is frustrating, and I feel for people when they're shopping for a mortgage, is then you get companies that are what I call, and we've talked about in the past, high cost lenders that charge more than the average lender. Let's say, when you're shopping around, Bank A, Bank B, independent mortgage lender C, and a broker D might all say, well, this is my rate for the exact same product. Well, The guys that are at the higher interest rate, let's say at a bank,
Yeah.
will then say, "Oh, those guys they're being deceptive with you. They're fibbing to you or whatever." And so then what is it? Or you got something in the mail. Well, this company says they can offer this. Oh no, it's a lie. They're saying that. Well, that's when you as a consumer have to do the research
Gotta do your
of getting
Yeah.
a loan estimate from each lender for your scenario. And to be clear, you don't have to have your credit pulled and those kind of things to get an estimate from these companies. You can get an estimate based off of the facts you've provided to then do a fair comparison, because again, you have to remember, in mortgage, they're salespeople.
Yeah.
They are selling
Yeah, sure.
you a loan, and so you're going to have company A that has higher price, a higher margin that they're going to charge the consumer, will always talk negatively about another company that's going to provide a better deal. So that's where it's like, okay, so you have to worry about companies that will pretend they're not the lender you're with. You have to pretend, or you have to worry about online companies, capturing your information when they're not really the company you intended on working with.
Yeah.
Then you, on top of that, have to worry about people within the industry really bus driving on each other trying to get your business. It's simple. Up front, you get A, B, C, and D offers. Make sure they're all in writing with loan estimates, so you can make, as the consumer, the fair, unbiased decision. And on top of that, when you get any solicitation, read the fine print carefully to find out who you were working with.
My husband and I have bought and sold homes many times, and so we know a lot of this and understand a lot of it. My concern is that who are the groups that really get targeted for this? Is it like first-time home buyers? Is it veterans? Is it somebody who needs a specific kind of loan? Because I heard that there were some veterans who said, we've been targeted by people who are not really telling us the right thing, or not telling us the truth.
That's
for
a
lack
great,
of a better term.
that's a great thing. I would say associations. If you belong to a veterans association, there's been cases in the past where certain groups have sold the information to a lender, and they should not have. So then that lender is specifically marketing. I would say also companies that would be targeted, like even in the Sacramento, Northern California region, are companies that do a lot of advertising, like Catalyst Mortgage, other banks, and other people on radio, TV, whatever. Companies will try to target that to skim leads or skim business off of those companies. And then you look at consumers. I always say elderly is a target for any type of lead phishing or rip-off or scam.
Yeah.
And so even if you're elderly looking to do a reverse mortgage, do your research, and if you're not familiar with it, ask a relative. And if you still don't have a relative that you can ask, the HUD has counseling centers you can go to, and you can look up HUD Counseling Center online, but do the research to where then you're protected. And then on top of that, that the company you've intended on working with is who they say they are.
Yeah.
And then when you get that information and you're working with these different companies, get everything in writing, truly in writing, to protect yourself. Because no matter what you do, there is going to be deceptive advertising. There are going to be companies or in agencies or people pretending they're going to be someone else.
Yeah.
You just have to know that you have to protect yourself as the consumer, and you have to make sure you are really safe, and that you're not going to make the wrong decision because you think something when it really is something else.
And I like how you say get everything in writing, because I know that you've said to me, get everything in writing, and then you take it home.
Yeah.
And you take the time to look at it. The other thing, and then we got to wrap up, but I have to know, is there at any point that you cross that line of, I need to stop this process and really look into what's happening to me? Like, if I felt the company I was dealing with was being deceptive, at what point?
The second you feel it's being deceptive, stop, walk away. This is one thing that's great, with how mortgage loans work. You're given disclosures in writing. If you don't get those up front within 3 days of your application, there's a problem.
Yeah.
You go through the loan process, you get all the way to the end, you're given a closing disclosure, a CD as we call it, 3 days prior to closing. Then after that, if it's a refinance, you literally have 3 days to cancel, a 3-day RTC, right to cancel.
After you sign it?
After you sign note with a notary,
Yeah.
the documents have been notarized, you can cancel still. So the thing is this: you trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, if you're being given information over the phone, but then when you get in writing is different, and it's that we'll fix that. No. Or if you start getting all sorts of phone calls when you thought you were applying to one company, but you're getting all sorts of phone calls from different companies. Most companies that advertise do not sell information unless it's one of those, hey, we're going to shop to compete those kind of sites. But most of them that end companies don't sell it. So if you're getting other stuff, you might have been phished and your information sold. So just be, take your time, calm, collective, and if it doesn't feel right, stop, reassess, and then move forward.
That's it. Absolutely. So much information. I'm telling you, if you, need to go back on this and review some of the things that he had to say, do it, because you don't want to get ripped off. You don't want to deal with somebody who's being deceptive. That's what the Catalyst Report is all about. Listen to the Catalyst Report on KFBK Monday mornings from 7 to 8. Otherwise, call them at 287-7777 or go online to this Facebook page, ask whatever question you want, or go to catalystmortgage.com.